Welcome, everyone. We are starting a brand new series here called the Trout Lodge Series. And this is really a chance for me to sit down and get to talk to people about their stories and what fly fishing means to them and kind of how they came to the sport and just kind of highlight other people's experiences. So what is Trout Lodge? Well, Trout Lodge is a shack that I have in the back of my wood shop that is... It was here when I bought the house, and it serves as a fly tying station or facility and room. So it seemed like a fitting place to sit down and do these interviews, and it's nice. It's comfortable, right?
Very comfortable.
So I wanted to take a second to thank the sponsor for the whole series, which is ForeLand Beer, and today we're going to be drinking the Glass Volcano, which is a black lager. And we want to thank ForeLand for the sponsorship. And check them out. They're a small brewery in McMinnville, Oregon, and they're producing some high-quality beers. So my guest today is my very good friend and river companion, Mr. Ben Dobler. You've seen him in some of the videos, and you will continue to see him as he has been a great fishing buddy, but also a nice help around filming some of this stuff. So, but I really wanted to start with Ben because I think it's been, as he sort of steps in and helps out with this stuff more, I think it's cool to feature his story, and I think it's a really unique story, and I think it's going to be interesting. So it'll be interesting to everyone. So,
Hopefully,
everyone, welcome, Mr. Ben Dobler.
Howdy, howdy.
So, Ben, I wanted to kind of sit down and have this conversation. We attempted to do this before. We attempted to do this on the side of the river, and, well, the lighting was terrible.
Yes.
So,
I had the face of a cuttlefish.
Exactly.
Red, blue.
Yeah, it's pretty true, yeah. The light from the fire was just not working, and we weren't well prepared for it. So, we figured we would actually do it in Trout Lodge as part of the series. So I wanted to, just kind of start off by saying, how did you start? Like, what got you into fly fishing? When did you start? That kind of stuff.
So, I mean, fishing in general, born and raised in Oregon and Southwest Washington. And so at a young age, my family was taking me up, kind of up Mount St. Helens, Gifford Pinchot area, and we were doing a lot of spinner fishing up there, night crawler, that kind of stuff. Dad would drag me up and down the river, and we would slay fish up there.
Sure.
The late 70s, early 80s, there's a lot of fish in the rivers.
Were.
Yes, yeah. Were being the key phrase. And it probably wasn't until about, I'd say maybe 11 years ago, my now ex-wife, for Father's Day, bought me a fly rod,
cool.
Which I think most men would probably say that that's a keeper, pun intended. And she was like, hey, you've been talking about this. Happy Father's Day. So I was like, sweet. Okay. Now what? Like some of these sports that are out there, there can be an intimidating component about it.
Right.
You walk into a fly shop and immediately it's just sensory overload totally. Of what in the hell is all this yarn with hooks hanging out of it? Right. And the cool thing about, I think the majority of the fly fishing community is it's super inclusive. Yeah. I mean, the shops want you to be successful.
Right.
Because then you come back and buy more.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. That's how they stay in business.
Yes. So they're really, they really kind of assuaged a lot of anxiety. Mm-hmm. And, for me, it was kind of one of the first times to really just check my ego at the door.
Right.
And come in and just be like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Sure.
And, thankfully now, obviously, we've got the internet, we've got YouTube, all these resources that, I'm going to the Deschutes.
Yeah.
What do I need?
Right.
But you know, I prefer to try to go get some local tribal knowledge in that regard. Yeah, you know, it was kind of from there. Okay, let's go figure this out.
Right. So what do describe to me the first time you ever caught a fish on the fly? What was that like?
So we were camping up at Takalaka Lake, which is kind of at the foot of Mount Adams.
Yep.
I believe it's a stocked lake.
I think you're right.
And I'd never camped up there before. However, I'm familiar with the mosquitoes that that area produces up there, and a pretty, you know, impressive hatches that will take place. And so it was evening time, and I'm like, well, I'm going to go give this a shot. So kind of went around the lake and wandered out a little bit. It was a little silty, so I couldn't get too deep. But all of a sudden, you know, at the time I'm like, whoo, fish are jumping. So I had a dry fly on. Honestly, I have no idea what the hell fly it was. It was kind of brown and fuzzy.
Yeah, sure.
Did a couple false casts, threw it out there. Just kind of sat there. Okay, nothing. Did a couple more false casts, threw it out there. Boom, fish.
That's so cool.
And I'm like, this isn't hard.
Yeah, this is the easiest thing ever.
This is easy. I don't know why all these people have all these troubles and stories about it.
Right.
And so yeah, caught a couple fish, and again, being a stocked lake, kept a nice, probably 13-inch or so.
That's cool.
Brought that back. Yeah. Showed my daughter how to clean a fish, and threw it in. And I think we just used like a scrambled egg wash, and a little cornmeal. Yeah. Fried it up and had it with cheese and crackers.
Totally. Oh, I think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So what, you know, now that you've been doing it a little bit longer, what do you feel like is your favorite type of fly fishing?
Well, you know, so it was interesting because I didn't fully understand kind of subsurface fishing, aside from going back to the spinner days of a bobber and a split shot and a worm.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it wasn't until really you and I kind of started hanging out, and I really started to understand subsurface fishing, you know, aka nymphing.
Sure.
And then really kind of started to geek out a little more into that realm of, you know, check nymphing and the various, you know, different styles of multiple flies and understanding, you know, kind of how to roll cast a little bit better, throw it up, and you know, really learn to read the water of where, you know, where the fly needs to be. And but you know, I mean, I would have to say that, you know, nothing beats a dry take.
It's pretty hard to beat.
I mean, it is when you throw it into the seam or into the foam line, and I think what's even better is when you get that rejection. And you're like, okay, the fish aren't that dumb.
Yeah, it's the truth.
Yeah. and so then you're like, okay, I could try again, and typically I do.
Yeah.
You typically don't get the same fish coming up. Yeah. You might get a different fish. And so then you can start to go down the rabbit hole of, am I going to sit here and go after that one fish and tie on, you know, 4 or 5 different flies to try to get that fish? Or am I going to just take the L and
move on?
Move on, take a couple steps.
You win today.
You win today, and take a couple steps and recast. And I think I find myself typically doing that more and more. But, you know, the salmon fly hatch on the Deschutes, I mean, it's legendary. You know, the majority of people watching this have either fished it or heard about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I mean, when you're throwing a bug out there like that, and you're like, okay, this big, obnoxious chubby is attracting a fish. Maybe fish are dumb.
Yeah, I think that every time I throw a chubby Chernobyl, I'm like, no way. This is not. No. And you tie these beautiful flies that look exactly like nothing. And you throw one of those out there.
You're like, what? Yeah. So,
you can see it. I mean, I think that's a big thing for me. You know, I've fished some pretty epic midge hatches that you're like, I have no idea if that fish is rising from my fly.
Right. Yeah. Fish on.
Yeah. Oh, I got something. Yeah. Totally.
So yeah, that. So I mean, and I think the majority would agree. I mean, a dry fly take is pretty impressive. But you have those days where you go out and you try the dries and you're striking out and you're like, well, I am here to fish and ideally catch. So let's move to subsurface
For sure.
And have that option.
It is,
available.
I've always thought that that's pretty interesting how, nymphing has this sort of faux pas around it.
Right.
Like that it's just such a lesser type of fishing, which I mean, I understand it's not as thrilling as the dry fly take,
Right.
but I mean, fish are feeding subsurface, 80% of the time, right? So that was something I keyed into very early on in my fly fishing experience was, they're down there fishing. Like I have no qualms in them because I'm catching fish.
Exactly.
Would I rather be dry fly fishing? Sure.
Yeah.
But I would also, like to catch something.
Yeah. Well, but when you throw a rainbow warrior down there, you're like, okay, that looks like absolutely nothing they would eat.
Sure.
And then again, it goes back to maybe fish aren't that smart.
Yeah. I mean, it's in the right shape, right?
Yes,
Maybe not the right color. It's the disco fish.
Yes,
or fly, whatever. But, it is pretty fascinating how I don't know. I just, and especially around Euro nymphing too, how it's really, I think there's a lot of the old guard that it's just, whether it's something new or whether because the catch rate is so high. And I understand that part of it. We've talked about this many times. Like, do you really need to catch every single fish in the river?
Yeah.
No. Are you good after 4 fish?
Yeah.
I usually am.
Yeah.
That's
exactly. It's time to crack
It's exactly.
a ForeLand Beer.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Reminding us that today's sponsor for the video is ForeLand Beer. And actually, on that note, we will have some links to website and some of the social media stuff for ForeLand. So check them out. Distribution all throughout Oregon and Washington. So representing the Pacific Northwest pretty well. So
Great team out there.
Agreed. So one of the things I didn't highlight on was basically how Ben and I know each other too. And so we both worked in the beer industry for a really long time, and Ben a lot longer than me. But we connected, obviously, for multiple reasons. But fishing was one thing that kind of drew us together. So going back kind of to dry fly stuff. So in that, do you have like a specific type of water that you really like to fish more, like foam line, pocket water, like that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I enjoy pocket water because foam line is great. Mm-hmm. It's consistent.
Right.
That's where they like to eat.
Yeah.
Typically with foam line, it's not maybe moving as fast as pocket water is. Yep. And so I kind of like that ability to upstream cast and just, pull your line in and really just hit it perfect. So either lands in the pocket or it drifts into the pocket.
Yeah, sure.
And try to present it as natural as possible.
Right.
And I mean, I think it's awesome when you can get into a stretch of water and you're like, there's a pocket, there's a pocket, there's a pocket. Yeah. And that your odds have just increased of, okay, struck out here, boom here. And I mean, I had a weekend a month or so ago where there's probably 15 to 20 different pockets in about 100-yard stretch.
Yeah.
And it was just gangbusters, one after another. And then you're just kind of like that muscle memory kicks in. And
Exactly.
You're just game on.
Yeah, that's such a cool feeling.
Yeah.
We fished some pretty cool pocket water over the years, and I don't know. For me, that's how I grew up fishing, was that kind of smaller stream, boulder fields, and and it's just so much. It's like, I don't know. It's like a little mini hole, one after the other, and well, and I think there's an element of it too that is about learning. You really learn how to drift a fly pretty well because you have so many different seams of current that you have to. Sometimes you have to high stick it. Sometimes you have to. Kind of change your approach. Whereas, a big river like the Deschutes, is kind of about a nice presentation and then just, some simple mends. But shy of fishing some of the eddies and stuff, you're not fishing as many current seams.
Right.
I suppose it depends on where you're fishing
at. Yeah, but
so.
primarily we're ending up.
Is there any type of fishing that you feel like you want to improve on or just kind of get better at or anything like that?
Yeah. I'd love to swing and spay a lot more.
Sure.
I have made attempts.
Yeah,
and
you and I are similar on that.
Yeah, and I'm not embarrassed to say, I haven't landed a steelhead on the swing. It is such a beautiful cast, and the technique of like really when I first started out, I mean, I was getting tired. I was getting fatigued after like the 10 minutes.
Sure.
And this is stupid.
Maybe I'm not doing this.
Yeah. Maybe I'm not doing it. And then, once I learned a couple things about the lever and all of a sudden, you're just like, boom.
Exactly.
And I mean, it's cool to shoot a bunch of line across the river and you're just watching all that just
exactly.
And, I hope that, we can eventually capture it, but watching some of those slow-mo videos of the water droplets falling off the line, I mean, that's just sexy.
It's primo stuff. Yeah. Absolutely. And it's,
but yeah, I would have to say that, or getting more into some saltwater fly, which, I mean, the Pacific's pretty close to us.
Sure.
And some of the tributaries there. But getting in some of those like Florida flat bottom boats and
it'd be pretty cool.
Yeah. Just wearing comfy pants and a comfy t-shirt.
Yeah, exactly. So tell your friends to all subscribe.
So we can do an episode
so that
in
we
Florida.
can do this in Florida. Pacific South, prolific Southeast.
Yes, there we go.
Yeah. I'm with you on that. I've never done like redfish fishing in outside of New Orleans and stuff. That's something that that would be so much fun.
Yeah.
But even the flats, even some tarpon fishing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, honestly, up here, bull run are getting more and more, or not bull run, bulls
sure.
Are getting more and more healthy, and going out and spending some time, really trying to understand that and target that a little bit more would be a blast. Again, mainly just from the fight that that can happen.
Well, it's predatory fish, right?
Yeah.
It's I mean, we have browns. I mean, obviously we have bulls as well.
Yeah.
But they're just so endangered in so many places that it's very few rivers that we can actually fish for.
Right.
I think we have a Canada trip that we might need to take to go seek them out where they're not so endangered. But, so we'll kind of wrap up and final question. I guess it's not really wrapping up, but final question. So what do you think as, the fly fishing community, what do you think that we can do better? And kind of putting that under a few tiers of like the community in general, but then also like, what can we do better, kind of currently, but also what under that umbrella, what can we do better for the next generations, right?
Yeah, I think, and this is where it gets a little, I was going to cuss right there.
Hey, you're learning. Saving me my work.
I caught myself. It gets a little effed up. In some of these smaller communities where, you go out there and you go to some of these rivers and it's just trashed out. And that's just unfortunately how they've grown up. And they don't fully appreciate what they have around them. And so, from kind of a conservation standpoint, reaching out to, doing events in some of these communities to fundraise, show them that, hey, we want these rivers to, remain pristine. Sure. And there should be zero politics.
Yeah,
thrown into
nothing to do with politics.
Yeah, it has absolutely. It's not a hippie thing to want a clean campsite or
nature should be natural.
Yes,
right?
nature should be natural, and some of that starts with education, and and it just starts with just simple conversations in a tavern, with the locals.
Absolutely.
What am I doing here? Or why am I here, etc. And so I think there's the education component in some of these communities, vis-a-vis the outreach. Right. I mean, there's some amazing, river programs, river cleanups, really promoting a cleanup in small town X.
Yeah.
And showing up in mass,
right.
supporting that economy.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And just letting the locals know, hey, other people from other areas of the state really love what you have here.
Yeah, and doing it without seeming pretentious about it. Right?
Correct.
I mean, I think that's one of the biggest stains I think that fly fishing has is sort of this pretension to it that seems unnecessary to me.
Yeah.
And I think it drives sort of a division that I think, if we can overcome that,
right,
then it's an easy gateway to get in there,
Yeah, exactly. And I think that is the biggest thing is that, it's rich people.
Exactly.
And, I mean, I've seen people on some old ass fly rods and old ass waders with holes in them, or maybe not even wearing waders.
Yeah.
And they're just killing it.
Absolutely.
Catching fish.
Turns out you don't need
sure,
better tools can help you do the job a little bit more efficiently, but you can still get it done.
Yeah, you can still get it done. And I think that has been kind of my bigger evolution as well with this is I love gear.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to be shy about that.
Totally.
And yeah, you can go get, a 2-weight Euro nymph rod. You can go get a 3-weight. You can go get, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 weights and all this stuff. And, that might help.
Right.
It might not.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, if, you're throwing dries and you're not presenting them correctly,
right,
fish are going to ignore them.
Yeah.
Or if you're throwing the wrong fly, or even if you're subsurface.
Absolutely.
I mean, hell, there's been times where you and I have had the same thing on.
Yep.
And you're catching and I'm not.
Yeah. Totally.
And so, but circling back to just that, I think education is a huge thing. And some of that is just social education in just like, I'm from Portland. That doesn't mean I'm some political, you name whatever you want to name it of this and that. Yeah. No, I'm out here because this is effing beautiful.
Absolutely.
And so I wish that others appreciated what they had around them as well. And, could tune that mentality off of, I'm at the campsite. Yeah, cool. I'm in the forest. I can shoot my gun.
Yeah.
Great. Do that. Just clean your brass up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, sweet. I got to change tippet. Well, guess what? Wind it around your fingers and throw it in your bag.
Absolutely.
And I mean, just those little things are what I've really been myself, like, even if I'm just trimming small pieces off, I'm catching it in my pack.
Good for you.
I think
that's an overlooked one, right?
Yeah, it really is. And I mean, I think we both do a good job when we're out of picking up garbage
for sure
along the way. But I also don't want it to have to be this like, oh, cool, now I've got to carry another pack
exactly,
so I can pick up other people's shit.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
absolutely.
Beep.
Yeah, you're good.
So, I think it really all just stems from education and just, if you can show support to the community usually is very receptive to that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it definitely comes down to how do you do it without coming across as, demeaning and or pretentious about it.
Right.
It's about the rising tides raise all ships, right?
Correct. Correct.
That's great. I love that. I'm a huge fan of the education side of things and conservation side of things too.
Yeah.
I think we have to really respect it in order to we have to respect what we appreciate in order for it to be appreciated on down the line, right?
Correct.
And that's that's not always the case. I think that's human nature is take and
yes,
and it sometimes is hard to get outside of that. So
well, and I mean, and it's an entrenched mentality.
Yeah.
I mean, I come back and show my family pictures, and my dad's like, well, how many did you eat?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, right?
You know, I forget the guy who did the spoof videos explaining like
exactly.
No, we release them.
Yeah, absolutely. I know. It's such a it's an interesting thing though. I mean, it is. Truly probably the best conservation is not to go at all, but
right.
But at the same time, I think by not going, then there's an absence of people that are there actually helping to protect the place and or cleaning it up, because from a bureaucratic level, there aren't funds for this, there aren't any of that kind of thing. So it's good that there is a community out there doing it, and that I feel like it's pretty well known in the community about care and conservation.
Right.
I mean, I think it's fascinating. But I mean, that goes across a lot of sports. Even look at a lot of hunting. A lot of the conservation and hunting is done by the people doing the sport.
Exactly.
And that's one where you're not releasing.
No.
Hopefully not.
Yeah. No.
Or you're a really bad shot.
Yes.
Not you, but
yeah. Well, I've missed a couple.
Yeah, sure. You joined the club. Well, thank you. Thanks for taking the time to do this. And we will, of course, be on many, many, many more adventures.
Yes, we will.
I'm looking forward to some stuff that we have planned for next year and even the rest of this year, too.
Yeah.
We're getting into a fun time of year where some of our local water is closed down, but yet, we get to get out and, we're getting into some steelhead season here. Yeah. We're getting to fish some of the eastern rivers, and I don't know. I got a good Crooked River trip planned for us. So,
nice.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks.
Hey, and thank you. Honestly, over the last however many years it's been, my fishing has just exponentially increased. I mean, a lot of that is time on the water.
Sure.
But you, your brother, Luke, the other guys, it's, what we have around us. And I've said this many times, we are so spoiled. I mean, it's ridiculous. Let's go an hour and a half that way, an hour and a half that way.
Yeah, in any direction, really, yeah.
And
you'd call it prolific, right?
Yeah, I think I would. Yeah. And we're in the Northwest.
Yeah. Convenient, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, everybody, big thanks to Ben.
Yep. Thank you all.
And thanks for coming along for the journey.
Yeah. Smash that subscribe button.
Yeah, do that. Please. No. We'll see you again next time. Cheers.
Cheers.